So thank you very much for the introduction. Indeed, I am head of the labor migration law firm here in Berlin, and we advise companies on all matters of German immigration law, specifically corporate immigration law, labor migration law. So I will be sharing some insights from my practice as well in this presentation. And we will be talking about the recent immigration reforms in Germany and the opportunities and challenges that those bring. So firstly, we are going to just very broadly look at the legal landscape against which those changes were passed, both from a practical and a legal perspective, administrative perspective. Then we're going to briefly dive into the basics of German labor migration law for better understanding and look at the more concrete changes that have taken place and are taking place currently, both from the new Skilled Labor Immigration Act that was passed in Germany, as well as the new citizenship law, which is due to come into force soon. Lastly, more from the practical side, we are going to take a look at the challenges that also come with these opportunities created by the new law, specifically in terms of the migration administration. So let's dive right in. Today, we have passed the world's most modern immigration law. Those are no small words from the German Federal Interior Minister from June last year when the skilled labor immigration law was passed. Those big words were preceded by a background that has been building for a number of years, and that obviously we also see in other EU countries, which is the very high demand for skilled labor that we have in Germany. There are massive shortages, especially in specific specific sectors that we are facing. And this law was meant to help fill those shortages. One of the main reasons, of course, there are many structural problems that have led into this, but one of the main reasons that we also see in other EU countries is demographic change. So one of the other goals of this law is, of course, to get people into the country who are paying into the social systems in order to mitigate the fallout of all of these structural problems. So we see this on the one hand, which led to this. We're going to see if it's the most modern immigration law in a minute. But on the other hand, the other part of the background against this, which this was passed, is the situation in the German migration administration. So what we have also seen, and what has not changed since, is that immigration authorities are already quite overwhelmed. So we do see, as we already saw in Andrea's presentation to an extent as well, long processing times, long waiting times in Germany, and those are often unpredictable. So this is also something that we are going to look at a little bit more today. Overall, this being the background against which this law was passed, dive a little bit first into the legal side of things. So the centerpiece of German immigration law is the Residence Act. That is also the main law that is being amended by this new Skilled Labor Immigration Act. So to understand what the main purpose is, you have to look at the goal set out in this act. It serves to regulate the influx of foreigners, facilitates and organizes immigration, taking into mainly the economic and labor market policy interests of Germany. That is explicitly stated, and this is also something that the new reform mainly addresses, obviously. This is done through the residence work permit requirement. So in order to work in Germany, in order to stay in Germany for longer terms, you need a residence and work permit, or a residence title. That's the main term for that. And those are granted the categories are pretty strictly defined. So the main purpose of stay and category of residence title that this reform addresses is, of course, the category of residence and work permits for the purpose of employment. That is because we are looking obviously for people who are already educated. Ideally, we're looking for people who already have a job in Germany who can immediately fill that shortage, so they can immediately help us to solve these problems. But that by itself is not enough in order to address those problems and attract these people, because obviously a lot of people are going to want to bring their families, because otherwise Germany is not going to be attractive to them. So we have had changes with regards to family reunion category, to the family reunion category as well, and thinking further ahead, which is also a theme of this reform, we have had changes to the education category, because obviously we have people coming here who cannot perhaps immediately fill the gaps in our labor market, but whom we see filling those gaps in 3-4 years. They come here to get an education, potentially to study here, and those are going to be our skilled workers in the making, so to say. So we've had changes to these various categories across. So now let's take a closer look at that. I hope you can still see my screen. Here we go. Against this background, we have the Skilled Labor Immigration Act that addresses those various categories, and that is based on 3 main columns or pillars. So the first column that we have seen expand very much is the skilled labor column. So this is something that German immigration law has mainly focused on in the last years already. People who already have an education, either a university education or vocational education that is either from Germany in the first place or that is formally recognized in Germany. This is also the category that the blue card falls into, which we're going to get to in a minute. And this is very much what the German skilled immigration law so far has been based on. It's also very much centered around that, as we're going to see in a minute. As we can see, this part of the law already came into force on 18th November 2023, along with the changes to the blue card that Germany implemented on the last day that was formally permissible. So that was also a centerpiece of this reform. New to the German system, largely anyway, we've already seen some of it in recent years. However, now it's been significantly expanded, is the experience column. So here Germany is now moving away from this ideal of the formal education, university or vocational, that is recognized in Germany, and is moving towards a system where we are also looking at educations from other countries that are recognized in those countries. So what this experience column focuses on is if you have an education that, for example, you got in India, and that is not formally recognized in Germany, you may still have an in into the German labor market if that education is state recognized in India. Additionally to that, you do need a certain amount of work experience in order to be able to be eligible for a residence and work permit. So it is still quite a high bar. Germany has not quite moved away from the formal education requirement, but in comparison to the last years, this is definitely an opening, especially given that we've only seen this in a very small part of immigration law with regards to the IT sector so far, and now it's opening up quite vastly. So we're very interested to see what's going to come from that. These regulations have been in place since 1st of March, so not much practical experience there yet, but this should definitely provide some interesting opportunities. Lastly, we have the potentials column. This is very much in line with the skilled workers in the making category. So this is a category where we now see more of a focus on people who perhaps do not cannot immediately fill those shortages that we're looking for, but we see the potential in them that they will at some time, perhaps with some experience on the market, after some experience in Germany, integration into society, be able to fill those shortages. So in order to attract those high potentials, Germany has, again, focused on formal education. To some extent, that is a base requirement for that. But if you do not fulfill, as someone who wants to come here, the requirements of the skilled labor column or the experience column, but you're still interested in coming here, you may be in luck, because there is going to be the new opportunity card that is coming into force on 1st of June 2024. Here there is an opportunity to get access to Germany and even the German labor market to 20 hours of a general work permit per week, if you fulfill certain criteria according to a points system. This idea, interestingly, has actually been floating around in German policy for about 25 years, and now it's finally been put into force. We've been looking to, for example, Canada for that, because they do have a points system for certain categories of immigration. So this points system is now being trialed in Germany, and we're very interested to see how this is going to play out here in Germany as well. So basing on Andrea's presentation from this morning, I would like to focus now on the skilled labor column, and the heart of the new skilled labor column are the changes, of course, to the EU Blue Card. So let's look at more concretely how that has been put into force in Germany. Those changes are already in force. So as I mentioned earlier, the Blue Card fundamentally and the skilled labor column fundamentally still focus on academic training, in the sense of someone has to have a German or recognized university degree in order to get access to the German labor market and to the Blue Card, although that category has been expanded a little bit. We'll talk about that in a minute. Moreover, local employment is required in order to get a Blue Card. That has not changed. So you have to be paying into German social security systems, which of course is addressing the structural problems that I mentioned earlier. And your job must be appropriate for your qualification. So for example, if we have let's say an Indian citizen, Rajesh, who is coming to Germany or wants to come to Germany because he has a job offer to lead a chemistry company's lab. He has a PhD in chemistry that is recognized in Germany. This would be quite an easy solution. If, however, he were coming here as an office manager, maybe that wouldn't be quite so clear anymore. Generally, this is the category of people that the Blue Card requirements are targeting and have been targeting. Now, so far, the Blue Card required a minimum of a 1-year contract and quite a high gross annual salary. So with the so-called Big Blue Card, which addresses the general threshold for the Blue Card, so far that was €58,400 last year, gross annual salary that you had to have in order to get the Blue Card. for the so-called small blue cards. So with an additional labor market test that was to be conducted by the Federal Employment Agency, which mainly entailed a check whether the person is not working in worse working conditions than comparable German employees or domestic employees. That threshold was a little lower, 45,000, a little over gross annual salary per year. However, that was limited to MINT or STEM professions, which were identified to be particular shortage occupations in the sciences. Now, this is where we have some very exciting changes now, where Germany has very much decided to implement the opportunities that the directive brought. There we go. Sorry. Firstly, with regards to the qualification, we see some changes. As I said, generally, you do still need the university degree, but there are some interesting exemptions. So, for example, we see some exemptions for tertiary education programs. I believe that this is a bit of a German specialty, but I will be very interested to hear your comments, perhaps from other countries. These are considered to be very highly qualified vocational educations that are now also eligible for the blue card. We also see an opening for specific groups, especially in healthcare, where there is a massive shortage in Germany. So, for example, those are, for example, physiotherapists, but also groups of people like people in leadership positions in care. So those should be quite interesting, although they are still relatively limited. So I don't expect this to be a massive change there in practice. And also IT professionals with work experience. So it was previously the experience column, the only part of the experience column pretty much in Germany. IT professionals with work experience who do not have a university degree or other education are now actually going to be eligible for the blue card. And we have seen in practice that there has been a massive uptick in interest in this. So I believe in this regard, this will be very relevant in Germany. Regarding the gross annual salary, we also have a very interesting opening, and ever since this has been passed, we've also seen in practice that the blue card has gained in relevance. So for the general threshold, we see a much lower salary threshold now at a little over 45,000 euro gross annual salary per year. So this is just over the average salary in Germany, which makes the blue card a whole lot more accessible. As you can see, this is over 10,000 euro less in gross annual salary per year than it was prior to the changes. So this has definitely already made a difference in our practice. And for the so-called small blue card, so where, again, an additional labor market test is required, checking for working conditions to be at least the same as comparable German or domestic employees. The salary threshold is exactly at the German average. So this makes definitely the blue card more accessible, and we have yet to see just how much more blue cards will be issued. Lastly, there is a change in obviously the minimum duration of the labor contract in Germany from 1 year to 6 months, which can also make a difference in specific cases. So all in all, what we see here, so far, the blue card accounts for about a quarter in Germany of all of the employment-based residence and work permits, and about a 2/3 of the skilled labor permits. So we do expect the blue card to gain even more in relevance, even though it was already very relevant. So this should be interesting to see in the future. Just briefly, also taking into account the advantages of the blue card. So the blue card has been so far a a very interesting permit for applicants in Germany because it has, ever since it has been implemented, conferred rights that other permits do not confer. So for example, the job change was easier than with other permits. We're going to get to that in a minute. Access to permanent residence in Germany, so unlimited stay and labor market access is significantly shorter than with other permits, and family reunion was easier in some regards. So all of these categories I just mentioned have even further been addressed with the changes, so the blue card should gain even more interest. There are further advantages that stay about the same, so you can be absent from Germany for up to 12 months and not lose your blue card. The blue card will usually have a validity of 4 years or your end of employment plus 3 months, which is also a little bit of a perk over some of the other permits. And under German law, a lot of residence and work permits are discretionary and the blue card is not. If you fulfill the requirements of the blue card, you have a claim to that blue card, which obviously confers a whole lot more legal security than it does with some other permits. So let's look at the changes to the first 3 categories. Firstly, the job change. So far, you needed, within the first 2 years of having the blue card, for every change of employer, you needed to get the Foreigner Office's approval, which with the processing times I already mentioned, that could actually be quite tricky for a comparatively small change in your permit. So now this should actually be alleviated quite a bit, and we've actually already seen this in practice taking effect and making companies and employees' lives easier. So far, you need to submit a notification to the Foreigner Office in the first 12 months, so both an easier step with regards to procedure, but also with regards to the timeline. So then the Foreigner Office can halt the job change for 30 days, but can only veto if the blue card requirements are not fulfilled. So thinking back to our Indian candidate, Rajesh, who has arrived in Germany on the basis of his new blue card and wants to now change to a competitor of his current employer, who have offered him basically the same job as head of the laboratory, but with a better salary. So all he would have to do in order to change his job is to just notify the Foreigner Office, and he would be immediately able to start. With the only risk, of course, for employer and employee being that that job change can then be halted for 30 days. But given that it's the same job just with a better salary, we can be quite sure that this job change would not be finally vetoed. So the risk is only those 30 days. Access to permanent residence has also been made even more accessible. So generally, permanent residence in Germany takes 5 years to obtain. It's a bit less with regards to some skilled workers permits. But with the blue card, it is actually really fast. So you can get permanent residence after 21 months if you speak pretty decent German, B1 level. But if you speak only tourist level German, A1, then after 21 months, you are still able to stay in Germany permanently, potentially, as you become eligible for permanent residence. So this should be an interesting change from 33 months. We do see with our clients that there is always a big interest in the blue card specifically for this reason, and looking into the future, obviously giving people that perspective even earlier should make the German labor market more interesting. We've had some changes with regards to family reunion as well. So far, it was mainly the language requirement for spouses that was not relevant for blue card holders. However, with family reunion, the most interesting change is that people's parents can now also come to Germany to join a blue card holder or to join the blue card holder's spouse. However, this regulation, as promising as it is, unfortunately only addresses people who have obtained the blue card on or after 1st of March 2024. So this is something that has sparked a lot of controversy, rightfully so, given that the blue card holders who have been here for years, who have been paying into the social systems, who have integrated, learned German in many cases, you know, they obviously feel that they are being treated unfairly, given that they've been here so long, but they do not get this opportunity to bring their parents here, whereas people who newly come have this opportunity. So this is some food for thought, and I would also be very interested to hear your thoughts on this in the discussion. Increased EU mobility is also something that is an added advantage of the blue card, but given that Andrea has already spoken about that, I will not go further into it at this point. I won't go into the other columns in more detail. I do want to share some more details on the citizenship law with you and on the practice, and I promise I won't go much over the time. So with regards to the new citizenship law, this has been a bit of a theme of these reforms that I personally think is quite good and forward-thinking, that we're not only thinking about bringing these people here, but we're really thinking about how do we keep them, how do we address permanent residence, and then as a next step, how do we really make people coming here eventually a full part of the society. And of course, to do that, you need to be able to obtain and confer citizenship. So from June 2024, we have the new citizenship law coming into place, where finally, after years and years and years of debates in Germany, dual citizenship or multiple citizenships are going to be permissible. So you do not need to forfeit, for example, your Indian citizenship anymore when you want to take up German citizenship, which for a lot of people is a very, very relevant question. And it's also something that comes up with obviously the expat community that is already here, that potentially has not considered citizenship for this very reason. One of the main changes of the citizenship law is the duration until one can obtain citizenship. So far it was 8 years with some exceptions. The general timeline is now going to be 5 years, which for German standards is a very big step, because remember, permanent residence can usually be obtained after 5 years. So this is a big step, shortening that timeline. After 5 years in Germany, you can become a citizen of this country. And even, this is also an interesting change, after 3 years this is possible. If you speak very, very good German at C1 level, and if you have shown special integration achievements. Now, we don't know exactly what that means. We've had some examples from the authorities, for example, if you've really put time and effort into volunteering in Germany, if you've really contributed to this society. But we do see that there is not very much legal security about this, and this will probably be a big amount of discretion that goes into that. So that will be interesting to see. So all in all, we do have very positive changes, forward-thinking changes here, and I think very interesting opportunities that arise from that, despite obviously some of the valid criticism in this law. However, we do see some challenges coming in practice. So I do want to share 3 brief examples with you of those challenges. The first example that I want to share with you is a bit of an illustration of how much foreigner offices are going to have to do in order to implement this legislation, because obviously this massive bit of legislation needs to be implemented into the processes, into the forms. People need to be trained on it before it can be applied, and part of it is already in force. So on the left side here, here we go. On the left side here, you see the old regulation on the blue card that had to be implemented in the foreigner offices. And on the right side, you see the new regulation, and that doesn't even include the regulations on mobility. So left side, font size 12, right side, font size 5. It should give you an idea of how much work is in front of the foreigner office to actually need to deal with this legislation in practice. And of course, this is not the only bit of legislation. It only pertains to the blue card. Secondly, I've mentioned it going into the presentation. Obviously, the skilled workers legislation is addressing a need for skilled workers, and the main purpose is to bring more skilled workers here. So ideally, we want more residence permits to be issued to people. And what that requires is capacity in the foreigner offices. I have copied here as one of the examples, many, unfortunately, examples that we currently face in Germany, an email from the Hamburg Welcome Center. That's one of the foreigner offices in Hamburg. It was an automatic reply to actually an urgent case that I was trying to push through with them. I'm going to read that to you. So, dear sender, we have received your email. Our average processing time is currently up to 20 weeks in some cases. You will receive feedback from us once your case has been processed. Due to the currently very high number of email inquiries, please refrain from making interim inquiries. This additionally increases the workload and prolongs the processing time. So the situation is already so dire, and now we're adding all of this into the mix. So this is something that really worries us as practitioners for our clients. The situation with citizenship cases, unfortunately, is not better at all. So I've copied here a screenshot from the official website of the Berlin Foreigner Office, which has now taken over. It's a bit of a specific situation. They have now taken over the cases from the district offices from 1st of January. However, it should illustrate how big that backlog was with the district offices already. So it says regarding average processing time on citizenship applications, the Berlin Immigration Office has taken over approximately 40,000 open naturalization applications from the Berlin districts as of 1st of January 2024. Longer processing times are therefore to be expected. So if you look at this massive backlog that we have been dealing with for years now, citizenship applications take at least a year, if not 2, sometimes longer. And you add on top of that the massive demand that is going to hit Germany in June for citizenship applications that we are creating because we want to create it. This is something that really needs to be addressed, and which is one of the legal community's major criticisms of this law in Germany, that the law has addressed many problems on the legal side, but these practical issues that are big obstructions in the implementation of this law have not been addressed basically at all. So in conclusion, the opportunities arising from these legal changes are definitely very interesting. They should definitely serve the German labor market in the future. However, this was not quite thought through with regards to the practice. And therefore, my conclusion is that unfortunately, for the moment, this law is mainly good on paper. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'm very much looking forward to the discussion.